There are moments in life when the shadows seem to grow longer than the day itself, when every corner of the soul feels swallowed by something ancient, something that whispers of endings rather than beginnings. In such moments, you might ask, how can hope possibly survive? Hope is not a naive optimism of the surface mind. It is not a fragile wish that tomorrow will be brighter simply because it should be. Hope, when it is real, is forged in the crucible of darkness. It is not given, it is summoned, and to summon it, you must enter into that very darkness which terrifies you. What I am about to share is not an abstract philosophy, but the deep alchemy of the psyche, something I have seen unfold in patients, in dreams, and even in my own life, when the unconscious spoke to me through images that burned like fire in the night. To stay hopeful no matter how dark life gets, one must first accept that darkness is not the enemy. It is not the adversary of life, but its complement, its mirror, its teacher. Every light casts a shadow. And to deny the shadow is to live only half a life. Many suffer because they attempt to cut off from what they fear. As if the act of looking away will erase the terror, yet the shadow, the unacknowledged, the hidden, has a way of growing larger the more you try to silence it. True hope does not arise from avoiding the dark. It is born the moment you realize that within the deepest night lies the seed of transformation. When I speak of the shadow, I do not speak of evil alone. I speak of all that is unseen and unclaimed within you, the impulses you have suppressed, the desires you have judged, the pain you have buried. To confront these aspects is to step into the underworld of your own being. Most people will not make this journey willingly. They would rather project their shadows onto others, creating enemies, blaming fate, or despising life itself. But the secret is this: the very thing you fear contains the key to your healing. The symbol of the night is not merely darkness. It is the womb of new beginnings, when you can see your shadow, not as a threat, but as a guide. Hope is no longer a distant star. It becomes the quiet flame within your chest that cannot be extinguished. Life will test you with seasons of despair. There will be times when you feel as though everything you believed in has betrayed you, when even your own mind feels like an adversary. This is what I call the descent into the unconscious. It is not a mistake, nor is it a punishment. It is the natural rhythm of the soul. Just as a seed must split open in the cold soil before it can grow, you too must sometimes break in order to awaken. It is in these times that the archetype of the wounded healer emerges. The pain you feel is not merely personal, it is archetypal. It connects you to all who have walked through the valley of shadows before you, and within that archetypal energy lies hope, because if countless souls have endured this darkness and risen, so can you. Dreams are often the first messengers of hope. When the conscious mind is exhausted, the unconscious will speak through images that seem strange or even frightening. But if you dare to look closely, you will see that even the darkest dream holds a fragment of light. I have seen patients on the edge of despair dream of black serpents, only to later realize that the serpent was not there to harm them, but to shed its skin, to signal that they too were ready for transformation. A nightmare is not always a curse. It is the unconscious knocking, demanding that you listen to stay hopeful. You must become a listener of your inner world. You must learn to see the language of symbols, for symbols are the bridge between the conscious and unconscious, between fear and understanding. Hope is not found in clinging to the illusion of control. You cannot command life to be easy or predictable. The psyche thrives in paradox. And the more you resist what is, the more you suffer. True hope arises when you surrender to the mystery, when you trust that there is meaning in what feels meaningless. This does not mean resignation. It means leaning into life with the understanding that even in your suffering, there is a deeper intelligence at work, something beyond your conscious grasp, something that belongs to the collective and the eternal. When I faced my own inner crises, I found that hope did not come from denying the chaos, but from participating in it, from drawing the images I saw in my mind, from giving shape to what was formless. That act of creation, no matter how small, is always a doorway to hope. Imagine a forest at night. At first, all you see is darkness. But then your eyes begin to adjust. You start to notice shapes, textures, paths you could not see before. This is how the psyche works. What first appears as unbearable darkness is often only the unknown. And the unknown, when you step into it, becomes the birthplace of new light. To cultivate hope, you must learn to walk into the forest of your own unconscious with courage. You must face the wild animals that dwell there, your fears, your griefs, your buried desires, and recognize them as parts of you. Hope comes when you see that nothing in you is to be hated or destroyed, only integrated and understood. The archetype of the hero speaks to this journey. The hero is not the one who avoids fear, but the one who enters the cave knowing that the treasure lies within the dragon's lair. In myth, the hero must always descend before ascending. Before being reborn, this is not just a story, it is the pattern of your psyche. Each time life challenges you, each time you feel swallowed by despair, you are being called to a heroic descent. If you can see your pain as initiation rather than punishment, you will discover a hope that no external event can take away. It is the hope of the soul that knows it is becoming more whole, even when everything on the surface feels broken. We live in a time when many people confuse hope with distraction. They seek constant noise, entertainment, or positive affirmations to drown out the darkness. But true hope is not found in plastering over the cracks. It is found when you sit with the darkness long enough to see its deeper patterns. There is a phrase I often return to. No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. If you are to grow, you must be willing to face what lies beneath. Only then can the light that emerges be strong enough to withstand life's storms. And when that light is born, it does not flicker like a candle. It burns like a flame that has known the wind and refused to be put out. I have seen people in the depths of despair begin to heal, not because their circumstances changed, but because they dared to look inward. They stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And began asking, what is this trying to teach me? What part of me must awaken? These questions are the language of hope. They turn suffering into dialogue with the unconscious, and the unconscious, once heard, will respond with guidance, with images, with synchronicities that seem almost miraculous. You may call it fate, destiny, or divine order, but I call it the self, the totality of your being. The central archetype that seeks to unite all the fragments of who you are. When you align with the self, hope becomes a natural byproduct, because you know you are participating in something greater than your own fear. There is a quiet strength in knowing that even in your darkest hour, so there is a deeper current carrying you. You are not as lost as you believe. The psyche has its own intelligence, its own rhythm of death and rebirth. When you trust this rhythm, when you stop forcing life to be something it is not, you begin to see signs of renewal even in the ashes. A single meaningful dream, a sudden insight, a symbol that speaks to your soul. These are the whispers of hope. They do not shout, but if you listen, they will guide you. Hope grows not in the absence of pain, but in the deep acceptance of it. It is a paradox, one that the conscious mind struggles to comprehend, because our culture teaches us to run from discomfort, to seek only pleasure and light. But there is a hidden law of the psyche that which you refuse to face will control you, while that which you embrace will liberate you. When you feel as though life is crushing you under its weight, it is often not life itself, but the resistance to what is. To remain hopeful, you must learn to soften into the experience, not as a victim, but as a witness who trusts the unfolding of an inner story far larger than the present moment. Consider the symbol of the phoenix. It does not rise without first surrendering to fire. Its death is not the end, but the necessary condition for transformation. You, too, are asked to burn away what no longer serves you. Your false identities, your outdated beliefs, your worn-out masks, these must fall into the flames. And though it feels like devastation, it is, in truth, purification. When everything you thought defined you is stripped away, what remains is the indestructible core of your being. From this core, hope arises naturally, like a bird emerging from ash, wings glowing, with a light that has been tested and proven true. In my years of exploring the human soul, I have found that people lose hope not because of external circumstances, but because they become disconnected from meaning. The human spirit can endure almost anything if it perceives a purpose behind the suffering. What destroys a person is not the darkness itself, but the belief that the darkness is meaningless. To stay hopeful, you must become an alchemist of meaning. You must ask yourself, what is this experience trying to reveal about me? What archetype is awakening through this challenge? Perhaps you are being called to embody the warrior who finds strength not in avoiding battle, but in facing it with unwavering presence. Or perhaps the sage is stirring within you, guiding you to look beyond the surface chaos and see the hidden patterns of the soul. The unconscious often speaks in symbols, and these symbols can appear in the most unexpected places in your dreams, in a passing image, in the words of a stranger, when you begin to live symbolically, when you treat life as a dialogue between the conscious and unconscious, you will see that hope is not a thing to be found, but a force that emerges from the depths of meaning itself. A dark night of the soul is not a void, it is a gestation period. The unconscious is at work, reshaping you, preparing you for a greater integration of yourself. This is why I tell those who are lost, trust your dreams. They are not random, they are messages from the deep well of your being. A single symbol, properly understood, can illuminate the path like a lantern in the dark. Imagine for a moment standing at the edge of a vast ocean at night. The waves are black and endless, and you can see nothing but the reflection of a few faint stars. You feel small, powerless, swallowed by something immeasurable. And yet, if you step into those waters, you discover that they hold you. They carry you not as an enemy, but as a mother carries her child. This is the nature of the unconscious. It can feel terrifying because it is vast and unknown, but once you learn to trust its currents, you realize that you are not drowning. You are being supported by something far greater than yourself. Hope begins when you surrender to that support. The shadow, too, is not to be feared, but understood. Many people lose hope because they identify only with the persona, the mask they wear for the world. When that mask cracks through failure, loss, or suffering, they feel as though their very self is collapsing. But the persona was never who you truly were. It was only the surface reflection. The shadow holds the rest of you, the forgotten and unexpressed parts that can bring you to wholeness if you dare to face them. There is immense hope in shadow work because it shows you that nothing is wasted, that even your darkest impulses contain a fragment of light. To accept your shadow is to reclaim your power. It is to see that what you thought would destroy you is, in fact, the missing piece of your strength. In the silence of the night, when the world's noise fades and you are left with only your thoughts, that is when the unconscious speaks loudest. For some, this silence feels unbearable, and they drown it with distractions. But if you can sit with it, if you can breathe into the discomfort, you will hear whispers of insight rising from the depths. These whispers often come as feelings, images, or sudden realizations that have no rational source. They are the language of the self. And when you listen, you find that hope is not the distant future event, but a living presence, here and now, quietly shaping your inner world. The process of individuation, the path towards becoming your true self, is not a linear ascent, but a spiral. You will revisit the same wounds, the same shadows, but each time with greater understanding, greater compassion. Hope grows as you see this pattern for what it is not failure, but evolution. The soul moves in waves, rising and falling, expanding and contracting, like the breath of the universe itself. To remain hopeful, you must align with this rhythm. You must see that even when life feels like a descent, It is only preparing you for the next ascent. The psyche, like nature, knows how to renew itself, if only you allow it. I often tell my students and patients that hope is a matter of inner vision. What you look at shapes what you see, and what you see shapes who you become. If you focus only on the chaos, you will find only despair. But if you look deeper beneath the surface events, into the symbols, the archetypes, the deeper truths, you will discover meaning, and meaning will give birth to hope. It is not about denying the pain, it is about seeing that the pain is part of a larger story, one that is still unfolding. You are not at the end of your story. You are in the middle, and the middle is always the most difficult place, but it is also the place where transformation happens. The world is filled with individuals who carry heavy shadows because they have never been taught how to face them. They live on the surface, moving from one distraction to another, hoping that external achievements or possessions will give them a sense of purpose. But hope built on external things will always crumble, because life will inevitably strip them away. True hope comes from within. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens on the outside, you have a source of light inside you that no darkness can extinguish. This light is not an illusion. It is the spark of the self, the eternal archetype that exists beyond time and circumstance. You may wonder, how do I find this light? The answer is both simple and profound. You do not find it by searching outward, but by turning inward. You sit with your fear, your grief, your anger, and you ask them what they have come to teach you. You allow the unconscious to speak through dreams, art, or reflection. You become a vessel for the unknown. And in that stillness, in that courageous act of listening, hope emerges not as a concept, but as a living fire. It is the fire of authenticity, the fire of knowing who you truly are, beyond the masks and the stories. The archetype of the seeker is alive in you, even when you feel lost. This seeker is the part of your soul that refuses to give up, that knows there is more to life than suffering and fear. It is this archetype that pulls you forward when everything in you wants to collapse. Hope is not always loud or triumphant. Often it is a quiet persistence, a whisper that says, there is something beyond this. When you honor that whisper, when you follow it, even in small ways, you strengthen it. Over time, it grows into a voice that can carry you through any storm. There is a peculiar strength that comes when you stop fearing your own depths. Many people live as though their inner world were a battlefield to be escaped rather than a landscape to be explored. They fear what they might find if they descend too deeply, the memories, the wounds, the raw truths. Yet, paradoxically, hope is often buried in that very soil. When you have the courage to descend, to truly look at what lies beneath the surface, you discover not only pain, but also treasures you never knew were there. These treasures are often your forgotten strengths, your hidden creativity, your capacity for love and resilience. They are like jewels buried in the mud, waiting to be unearthed by the one who dares to dig. The journey toward hope is not a straight line. It is a dialogue between the conscious and unconscious, between light and shadow. At times, you will feel as though you are making progress only to be dragged back into the same darkness you thought you had escaped. But this is not regression. It is the spiral nature of healing. Each time you revisit your shadows, you do so with new eyes, with a deeper understanding. Think of the myth of Persephone, who descends into the underworld each year but returns each spring with renewed wisdom. Your psyche works the same way. Every descent into the dark is a preparation for the light that follows. The very act of descending, of facing what is hidden, is itself a form of hope, because it says, I believe there is something worth finding here. Archetypes play a profound role in keeping hope alive. The archetype of the hero teaches us that every trial is an initiation, every loss a threshold. The mother archetype whispers that even in the darkest night there is a nurturing presence, a deep feminine energy that holds and protects us when we cannot protect ourselves. The wise old man or woman reminds us that life is a journey of meaning, that even suffering can be turned into knowledge. When you invoke these archetypes through stories, meditation, dreams, you are calling upon the collective wisdom of humanity. You are reminding yourself that your struggles are not isolated events, but part of an ancient pattern of transformation. Hope, then, is not about clinging to a future free of suffering. It is about knowing that suffering itself is meaningful, that it can be transmuted into something beautiful if you have the courage to stay present, to stay hopeful. You must let go of the idea that life owes you happiness or clarity. Instead, you step into the unknown with curiosity, with the trust that even chaos has its order, even pain has its purpose. This is the essence of individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating all parts of yourself, both light and dark. And as you move toward wholeness, hope becomes less of an effort and more of a natural state. Quiet confidence in the unfolding of life. I recall moments in my own life when the darkness was overwhelming. During my confrontation with the unconscious, I felt as though I were drowning in images and visions I could not fully understand. There were nights when I wondered if I would lose my mind, and yet I discovered that by engaging with these images, by painting them, writing about them, dialoguing with them, I found not despair, but a deeper sense of meaning. Our image, no matter how dark, carried a fragment of the self. And as I integrated these fragments, I began to feel whole. Hope was not something I had to force. It was the natural result of embracing all that I am. The unconscious is not an enemy, but a guide. It may present itself as a dark forest, filled with wild beasts and strange voices. But these are merely aspects of your own psyche seeking recognition. When you meet them with curiosity rather than fear, they transform. The monster becomes a guardian. The darkness becomes fertile ground. Hope emerges when you realize that nothing in you is to be discarded, only understood and integrated. Even your deepest wounds can become sources of strength, for they teach you compassion, patience, and resilience. It is important to remember that hope does not always feel like joy. Sometimes hope feels like nothing more than the willingness to take one small step forward. Even when everything in you wants to give up, It is the quiet decision to keep breathing, to keep listening, to keep creating, even when the world feels cold and indifferent. This kind of hope is not fragile. It is forged in fire. It is the hope of the warrior who knows that meaning is not handed out freely. It must be claimed, even in the midst of suffering. And each time you claim it, even in small ways, you become stronger, more whole. Dreams can be your greatest allies in this process. When life feels unbearable, the unconscious will often send dreams that reflect your inner struggles and hint at solutions. These dreams are like letters from the soul, filled with metaphors and symbols that, when understood, can reignite hope. A single dream can shift your entire perspective, showing you that what seems like an ending is, in fact, a new beginning. I have seen individuals on the verge of despair have dreams of rebirth, images of water, of new growth, of hidden treasures, and these dreams became the turning point in their journey. To stay hopeful, you must honor your dreams, for they are the whispers of the self calling you home. In times of darkness, you must also remember the importance of creation, whether through art, writing, music, or even simple acts of building, is a way of collaborating with the unconscious. It is a way of giving shape to what is formless, of turning chaos into meaning. When you create, you step into the role of the alchemist, transforming base materials, pain, confusion, fear into gold. And this gold is not just for you, it radiates outward, touching others, reminding them that they too can find hope in the act of creation. The psyche craves wholeness, and wholeness includes both suffering and joy, both death and life. When you reject one half of this duality, you cut yourself off from your own potential. But when you accept both, when you allow life to be both dark and light, you discover a resilience that cannot be shaken. Hope is not about believing that life will always be easy. It is about knowing that you have the inner resources to meet whatever comes. It is about trusting that the self, the totality of who you are, is always moving toward integration, toward a deeper harmony that transcends the opposites. Think of the mandala, a symbol I often used in my own work. The mandala represents the self, the center of the psyche, the place where all opposites are reconciled. When you feel lost, when hope seems far away, I encourage you to visualize or even create your own mandala. Let it be a reflection of your inner state. As you draw or imagine it, you will begin to see patterns emerge, a sense of order arising from chaos. This is the nature of the psyche. It seeks to bring harmony out of disorder, and in that harmony, hope is naturally born. Hope, when understood deeply, is not a fragile emotion that depends on the world being kind or predictable. It is a force that arises from the recognition that life is a dynamic interplay between light and dark, between order and chaos, between what is known and what remains forever a mystery. This recognition does not come from the intellect alone. It comes from the lived experience of walking through your inner labyrinth, meeting the shadows that lurk there, and realizing that they are not demons sent to destroy you, but teachers guiding you to your greater self. There is a moment in every true journey when you feel as though all hope is lost. The old myths speak of it as a dark night of the soul. The moment when the hero believes they cannot go on. It is here, in this crucible of despair, that hope is forged. Because hope is not the absence of suffering, but the realization that there is meaning within it. If you can look at your pain and ask it what it wants to teach you, if you can see your suffering as a threshold rather than a dead end, then you have already lit the flame of hope. It might be a small flame at first, flickering and fragile, but it will grow as you continue to face what is within you, to remain hopeful no matter how dark life gets. You must cultivate an intimate relationship with your unconscious. This means listening to your dreams, your intuitions, the sudden images that flash in your mind when you least expect them. It means paying attention to the synchronicities that seem to appear out of nowhere, those moments when life sends you a symbol, a pattern, a sign that resonates deeply with your soul. These are not accidents. They are the voice of the self calling you to remember that your life is part of something larger, something meaningful beyond comprehension. When I worked with patients who felt as though they had no hope left, I would often ask them to describe their dreams. At first, they might dismiss these dreams as meaningless or strange, but when we explored them together, when we decoded their symbols, a different story began to emerge, a story of renewal, of hidden strength, of a light trying to break through the darkness. Dreams are bridges to the unconscious, and the unconscious is where hope is born. Even the darkest dream, when understood, can reveal the seed of transformation. You must also remember that hope is a practice, not a passive state. It is something you cultivate through conscious effort. It is the decision to face your shadows rather than project them onto others. It is the willingness to engage in inner work, even when it feels uncomfortable or painful. Every act of self-awareness is an act of hope, because it affirms that you are not defined by your circumstances or your wounds. You are something greater, something that can grow, adapt, and create meaning, even in the bleakest times. Consider the archetype of the alchemist. The alchemist does not deny the presence of lead, of the heavy, dark, seemingly worthless material. Instead, they work with it, transforming it through a slow and deliberate process into gold. This is what you are called to do with your own life. Your lead might be your fears, your grief, your failures, your sense of being lost. But when you approach these with curiosity, with a willingness to learn, they become the raw material for your transformation. And as this inner alchemy unfolds, the hope is no longer something you search for. It becomes the very air you breathe. The path of individuation, which is the path toward becoming your true and whole self, will challenge you to embrace contradictions. It will ask you to hold both light and dark, joy and sorrow, life and death in the same hands. Many people resist this because it feels overwhelming. But there is profound hope in embracing the totality of life when you see that every experience, no matter how painful, is a thread in the larger tapestry of your being. You begin to trust the process. You realize that even your darkest nights are weaving something meaningful, something beautiful. Even if you cannot see the full pattern yet, there is also hope in knowing that you are never alone in your struggles. The collective unconscious holds the memories and wisdom of all humanity, and within it are archetypes that have guided people through darkness since the beginning of time. When you feel lost, you can call upon these archetypes. You can imagine the hero who steps into the unknown, the healer who transforms pain into wisdom, the sage who sees the truth beyond illusions. These images are not mere fantasies. They are living forces within you, waiting to be awakened. I encourage you to create your own rituals of hope. This might be as simple as sitting quietly each morning and asking your unconscious for guidance. It might mean journaling your dreams, creating art from your emotions, or meditating on symbols that resonate with your soul. These acts are not trivial. They are powerful ways of aligning with your deeper self. They remind you that hope is not something the world gives to you. It is something you cultivate from within. When life feels unbearably heavy, it is easy to believe that you are powerless, but the truth is that you have more power than you realize. You have the power to choose how you will respond to your circumstances. You have the power to seek meaning, to create beauty, to connect with something greater than yourself. Hope is not the belief that life will be perfect. It is the knowing that you have the inner strength to meet whatever comes, and that even in the darkest moments, there is a spark of light that cannot be extinguished. I want you to imagine for a moment the image of a candle burning in a vast dark room. At first, the darkness seems infinite, overwhelming, but as the candle burns, you realize that the darkness is not as powerful as you thought. It only takes one small flame to push it back, to reveal shapes and possibilities that were hidden. That candle is your hope. It might be small at times, but it is enough. And as you nurture it through self-reflection, through courage, through the willingness to face your inner world, it grows. Soon, it is no longer just a candle, but a fire. A beacon that lights the way not only for you, but for others. Your journey will not always be easy. There will be days when hope feels far away, when the shadows close in and you cannot see the path ahead. But remember, the path is not always meant to be visible. Sometimes it is enough to take one step, to trust that the ground will appear beneath your feet. Sometimes it is enough to simply breathe, to let yourself feel what you feel without judgment. This, too, is hope, the quiet faith that life is carrying you, even when you do not know where. In the end, staying hopeful, no matter how dark life gets, is not about avoiding the dark, but about embracing it as part of the whole. It is about seeing that the darkness itself holds the seeds of your transformation. When you integrate your shadow, when you listen to your unconscious, when you trust the wisdom of the self, you find that hope is not a distant goal, but a living presence. It is the voice inside you that says, even in the midst of chaos, this is not the end. This is the beginning of something new. You are not defined by your struggles, you are defined by your willingness to go through them. Every challenge, every moment of despair is a doorway to deeper self-knowledge and greater wholeness. And as you walk through these doorways, as you face what is hidden, you will find that hope is not something you must chase. It is something you become. It is the quiet radiance of a soul that knows its own depth, its own strength, its own unbreakable light. So I leave you with this. Do not fear the dark seasons of your life. They are not here to destroy you, but to awaken you. They are the fertile soil in which your true self takes root. If you can meet them with courage, with openness, with the willingness to see the meaning beneath the pain, then hope will never leave you. It will be there, steady and silent, like the heartbeat of the universe, reminding you that even in the deepest night, the dawn is already on its way,